everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm here today to do a review for a book that I finished in the month of November of this year, and that is Self-Portrait with Boy by Rachel Lyon. This is a novel. It is set in New York City in the early 1990s, and we're following our main character, Lou Ryle. So Lou Ryle is a photographer. She is living in the Dumbo area of Brooklyn, and she's living in a derelict factory building that has been changed into artist studios. It's where a lot of artists are living there, but it's not legal. And what I think is brilliant about this novel is that it covers a lot of different periods and a lot of different aspects of living an artist's life and of New York City in the early 90s that I think is brilliantly put together. And there's so many layers to how the narrative evolves in this story. So Lou is a young, in her late 20s artist. She is trying to make a name for herself in a very competitive art market, obviously. And some of the artists that she is surrounded by in the building she lives in are very successful. And so she has this example of artists' careers that she is striving to get towards. And I think one of the really brilliant parts of this novel is how Rachel Lyon shows you the structures of the art world without really getting into a lot of telling you, without a lot of listing it. So you see within this building artists who have come from money, artists who have reached a certain level of success and therefore are more comfortable in their careers and in their lifestyles. You have artists who are in relationships and have children. And then you have artists who are kind of outsiders who don't really consider themselves to be part of the main art establishment. And so I think that's a brilliant little microcosm of probably the broader art scene in New York in general, because what you see is the influences around Lou and how she's trying to navigate building her own career amongst those things. So she is struggling. She's working 3 different jobs. She's working in a supermarket, like a health food style supermarket. And she is also substitute teaching for times at an art school, which is another layer of the class system within New York City. So while she's substituting at this art school, she encounters lots of rich kids and kids that are privileged. And she also encounters one student in particular who is from another part of New York City, but who won the kind of poor kid scholarship to go to this richer, fancy school. And she, I think, identifies with that student. She herself grew up in Rhode Island, and we also meet her father, who raised her after she was abandoned by her mother. And her father needs cataract surgery. And so along with her own subsistence living, where she's living paycheck to paycheck, you know, choosing between buying food and making art, she's also got this extra financial burden of trying to take care of her father, who needs help medically, but also, you know, is not a very well-off person himself. And so you see a person who has been poor and who has lived in poverty most of their life. And that, I think, is really important to think about when you come to the moral dilemma of this story, which is that while Lou was creating this series of self-portrait photographs, she was taking a photo of herself, and there was a party going on the roof of her building. And as that was happening, a young boy who was on the top of the roof fell, and she captures that in her photograph. And as soon as she realizes that this has happened, she sees the photograph, she knows that this piece of art will make her. It will it will propel her career forward. And so she has a moral dilemma. And that's really what unfolds in the novel, along with all these other things. So you really get a glimpse of the struggle of trying to survive while making art in a society that doesn't value art as a valid profession. You see her struggling to create and maintain relationships. She particularly develops an important relationship with Kate, who is the mother of the boy who falls and perishes. And that relationship is very complex. Lou is also queer, and so she has a very layered relationship with Kate. And you get this sense that there's something more to it, because she also starts asking her father more about her mother and who her mother was, and she doesn't know anything about her mother. And that's not something in the novel that ever really gets resolved. But I think one of the brilliant parts of this novel is that there are so many complex layers to the relationships and to the development of Lou as a person. And she really talks about that, how her life trajectory is really based on this decision that she makes, whether or not she should exhibit this photograph. And so she knows that she will be made by this photograph. And the question that she's grappling with is, do I sacrifice all these other things, all these relationships, and maybe even a sense of moral correctness to pursue this art, to enter into this art world that is very exclusive and has gatekeepers, and you may only get one chance to get into, and I think at the time period that this is set, this is pre-art on the internet. Artists were much more at the mercy of the gallery system in order to become successful, especially in New York, or especially in the art world as we know it. And so, this was, it sounds like, oh, well, you could just, you'll take some other photograph in the future that'll be just as good, and then you'll get your career. It doesn't really work that way, especially at this time. And so she knows that this is her chance. And if she passes it up for a relationship, it will mean a certain type of life. And so there's a lot of other things also going on. You're also brought into the New York real estate scene. So at this time, there were a lot of moguls who were buying up these older buildings, these older like derelict industrial buildings, and transforming them into these luxury condos and things like that. And so that whole part is also playing a part in the story. And you just really see this contrast between rich and poor, and between the haves and the have-nots. And you see what is necessary, what you have to do in order to enter into that exclusive have world. And I think that dilemma is beautifully depicted here. There's a lot of nuance in the relationships. There's a lot of otherness. So you have all these different layers of otherness. Lou encounters some people who are living on the streets in New York. She is thrown into these different worlds and these different worldviews. The manager at the health food grocery store has a very interesting perspective that comes in. And you just see and feel that kind of strange limbo that you're in when you're in that period of your life in your 20s, where you're trying to figure out who you are and how your choices are going to define you. And this book just brilliantly depicts all that. It has just, you don't always agree with the decisions or the tactics or any of that. You witness people being very immature or making decisions that you wouldn't make, and that frustrates you. But overall, I think the characters are very complex and layered, and they give you that, realistic interpretation of how difficult it is to exist on this earth and make these types of decisions when you know that you have to sacrifice something for you can't get everything for free, and that within your life when you're making these decisions there often is going to be decisions you make which you don't regret, but which cause pain to others, or sacrifice something of yourself in order to move forward. So highly recommend this. I don't believe Rachel Lyon has released any other novels, but if she does release more novels in the future, I will definitely be reading them. So really great book about being an artist if you're interested in delving into kind of the psyche behind getting success in the art world. And that is all I have to say about this book today. Thank you so much for watching.